Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm David Matze with Matze Formula, and this is the MF5 Superlight project. So today's video is going to be a little update on where we're headed with this thing. But first, I want to thank everyone that came out to the recent shows. The car has been to 2 shows now, Import Alliance in Nashville, Tennessee, and also the Magic City Octane show in Birmingham. And it's just, I still can't believe how many people watched the channel in detail and came up to me asking questions about things that they saw in the videos like years ago about the belt system and the ignition system and all the little details. So that to me is what makes it so exciting, is that people are interested in what's really going on behind the scenes, and also how thrilling it was to see the reaction from people to hear the sound themselves for the first time. So I'm just so thrilled. I'm so grateful for my friends and my family and everyone that has participated in the project and the love that the community has been showing me. Now, of course, we are always going to have our little haters, insecure people on the internet. They got to have to say something. It doesn't matter what you do. The running thing right now is all he does is free rev the car. He barely drives it, blah, 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 blah. Like, when are you going to actually get on it? Quit giving us these lame videos. I'm sick of seeing this thing all over the internet. Whatever, man. Look, here's the thing, right? I've been working on this thing for 4 years. I'm not a professional race car shop. I'm actually a trumpet player and a real estate appraiser. I do this because I like it and because I want to do it, because I love it and because I can, not because I have to do this, okay? And so I put this stuff on the internet because it's fun and it's exciting, and I like seeing other people get fired up with me. And that's why I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. We don't know what any of this stuff is really gonna do. We're just trying to double check everything and be smart. And so in the meantime, I'm also tuning the engine, right? So we have to get data. There's no base map that exists for a turbo 5-rotor. Like, we're kind of guessing on the brake specific fuel consumption. We're guessing on the placement of the injectors, injector timing, air fuel ratio, all that stuff. First thing is go the speed limit. Make sure the brakes work. Make sure that the throttle cable doesn't stick. Make sure that the car drives and the oil pressure and the coolant and all those things look good, right? So what I'm doing in these videos, which again, it's only been on the street twice, is I'm giving it a little over half throttle and I'm keeping the pressure of the turbo off. So like, as soon as it starts getting into boost, I'm lifting so that I can kind of get an idea of where the volumetric efficiency curve is going, so that I can predict what to do with the air fuel ratio and the timing and things like that. Now, the reason why this is confusing to so many people is because it sounds like we're doing 200 miles an hour when we're only doing the speed limit. When you see the articles that say it's 1500 horsepower, I never told anybody this thing is 1500 horsepower. I said it has the components that makes it capable of 1500 horsepower. So I just don't want anybody to misunderstand me. So listen very carefully. This is an experiment. And why are we doing this? Because it's exciting. Because doing something that you've never done before, that is full of uncertainty, is where the joy is at. And that's why people are jumping up and down with excitement when they hear it, because they've never heard that sound before. So it's all about the joy of doing something you've never done. So I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make this thing as clean and as fun as possible. And I really appreciate you guys following me. Again, I'm David Zachary Matze with Matze Formula, and this is my MF5 Superlight project. All right, so first thing I'm doing here is removing the 10 millimeter bolt that is tapped into the bottom of the fuel rail. And this secures the bracket, just a backup bracket to hold the filter in place. And then gently unscrewing the AN fitting, being really careful not to lose the conical crush washer. I like to use a conical style crush washer. You guys might think this are pretty cool. They're 37-degree washers that you can buy from Pegasus, but I usually put them on the male ends of all of the hose ends that are super critical, just to give added assurance that you're not going to have a leak. So I'm just laying everything out here and then wiping down the intake manifold with 90% rubbing alcohol to get the E85 off that has 2-stroke oil in it. Some of it spilled, obviously, and I'm making sure to wipe off the downpipe
just don't want that stuff burning in when you start the engine up. So I try to be extremely clean with everything that I do on this car. This is kind of my process where I clean everything after I work on it or in the middle of working on it. All right, so I've got the Fuel Lab filter in the vise, and that's just because it's a really big nut on the filter, and then gently unscrewing it, try not to mar it up. And then we're just gonna rotate it counterclockwise, leaving the fittings in place on the end. I don't want to disturb them again because sometimes these 37-degree fittings, you can get a slight leak if you don't have them seated correctly. So we try to take as few fittings apart as possible. It's just kind of lessons from doing this for a while. And so that's the filter element coming out right here and the little spring behind it. And so yeah, we just lay everything out, little brake parts cleaner, spray out the inside of the filter housing, just to make sure there's no dirt or debris in there. And then I use a little tiny screwdriver to pop the nitrile seal off. And then I've got this Viton seal that I'm going to be putting in place. Just a little bit added protection for ethanol type fuel. And so you can see here, this is the Fuel Lab 10 micron, which is what's a paper micron filter, and this is a 6 micron, the one that we're going to be using. So the paper filter is what people usually use, but for alcohol, we want to use this nice 6 micron that's a fiberglass element. So we're putting the new O-ring back on, a little bit of dielectric grease. I do not like to use Vaseline or O-ring grease. I like to use dielectric. For some reason, I just find that it keeps the O-rings from swelling and falling apart, especially when using nitrile and Viton. It seems to be pretty compatible. Debatable, but it's always worked for me. So I always lubricate these just a little bit, tiny little touch, and it just makes everything slide together easy. Make sure you don't mar the O-ring, and just pop her right on there, and she's ready to go. And then giving it a look over, because I actually had a previous batch of Fuel Lab filters that were recalled because they split at the seam. So they've got a new glue and they sent me a new filter element. So I'm just checking it over real carefully here. And then we're going to install it back in the housing. So before I put it in the housing, I put a little drop of oil on the threads. Didn't show it in the video here. But yeah, so we just gently screw it back in place, making sure not to grab any paper. The paper is just to protect it so it doesn't scratch up in the vise here. And then a little bit of paint pen marking right here just to make sure that we know exactly how tight we're tightening it and that we can always return back to the same position. And then putting my 37-degree seal washer, cool little trick piece, back on. Again, I use these on a lot of stuff. Big 20 AN coolant lines. I also have copper ones that I use for stainless steel lines and brake lines. And you see that little plug, that's to hook up a drain to be able to pump the ethanol out of the system and or put a gauge there. So we're going to secure the bracket back to the fuel rail again in the same order as before, and just getting the hose end screwed on first. And now we're going to tighten it back up. And I'm using a little bit of blue Loctite and a lock washer, a Nord lock washer, just to hold this in place. And then I'm super careful not to over tighten these, but to make sure they're pretty snug and seated correctly. And right here, I'm holding the hose end away from the rail so that when I tighten it, it doesn't come back towards the rail and put pressure against the rail and rattle. Everything needs to be super critical on fuel system like this, especially considering it's all right over top of the collector. So we get everything situated here nice and tight. Snug it back down with our aluminum AN wrench. Make sure that it all feels good. Don't over tighten, but nice and snug. And then I'm going to grab a Sharpie instead of the paint pen, just a more appealing. Doesn't get too hot. It's not going to disappear. And again, just mark every single fitting to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And these are the details that you really want to pay attention to when you're working on your car. And then coming back through and applying a little bit of polishing compound just to touch up the rails from some of the spillage from the ethanol. And again, like, this is how I always work. I just really try to stay as clean as possible at all times and touch everything up along the way. This is how you maintain a presentable car and a functional car at the same time. So now we're just buffing it back out here and cleaning up a little bit of residue that was on the filter housing. All right, so now we're going to test the fuel system. I've got an electric primer pump in the tank that's set to the base pressure of the regulator at 85 psi. Now I only use this to start the engine, but we're going to use it to pressurize the fuel system and just ensure that there's no leaks. Very important. So we're just going to click this thing on, verify that we have our base fuel pressure. It's priming right now, and there we go, 84, 85 psi. That'll pull down to about 82 when the engine's running from vacuum. And so now I do this every time. I use a little blue paper towel, and then I chase every single fitting and injector to make certain that there are no leaks. So you could just hold the paper towel right under it, and if you have a little pinhole leak or a misaligned fitting, you'll be able to detect it. And so I like to regularly do this for the injector O-rings too, just to be sure, even though we use Viton. And Viton is the same, that's like the brand name for fluoroester or FKM. So, yep, you can see we ran through the primaries and the secondaries, no leaks, looking good. And so now we're going to click the electric pump back off from our Haltech can pad. All right, so now we're going to get to the spark plugs. I'm pulling the plugs on rotor 5 here. Not a very good view. I mean, this is what I'm able to see too, so you got to really do this by feel. But you got to get the plugs out from the top. There's no way to get to them from the bottom. Luckily, it's pretty accessible. You just have to really get your order of operations and the feel down correctly. So I'm going to show you rotor 5 here, but we're going to skip the other ones. So let's go ahead and get these plugs out. You can see I already have them labeled just to keep track when you're checking compression and looking at, you know, the life of the plugs. All right, so the new plugs are going in, finishing up rotor number 3 right here. I'm going to leave 4 and 5 open just to do a quick little compression test at the back of the engine. That came out really nice. I like to regularly check compression when we're breaking an engine in. You can watch it come up over time. And then this is the important step that most people don't pay attention to. If you have an RX-7, you really want to do this. So wipe down every single plug, all the porcelain, with rubbing alcohol 90%. You don't want to touch it with your fingers. So you want an airtight seal, and you don't want any residue. Otherwise you can get arcing. And then I fill the inside of each boot with just a little bit of dielectric grease. Again, very important. I learned this the hard way on the 4-rotor because I had a spark plug wire that actually was arcing a hole through the side of it from not having it airtight sealed. And this is an injector test, just making sure we don't have any sticking injectors. You can tell when they're about to stick because the clicking won't be as audible and you won't be able to feel it as well. So I like to touch each injector, primary and secondary stage, and just verify that they're all clicking nicely, which they're beautiful here. All right, so now we're almost ready to fire this thing up. So we're going to fire it up just for a little bit, and we just want to make sure we don't have any arcing and everything looks good. Sometimes it's better to turn the lights off, make sure you don't see any lightning bolts, but I think we should be good. Just double checking the throttle here, make sure nothing moved. And then we're going to prime the oil system. This is a dead cold start. So we're going to prime the oil system. 36 PSI cranking. Then we click on lift pump and ignition. Turn off the lift pump. Now we're running on mechanical fuel pump cable drive. We can see the belt system here. Transient throttle feels great. It took a lot of work.